Thank you so much again for joining us this morning, Mas Abi. It's good to have you back.
Good morning.
And again, as Paul stated, this is a discussion that we need to be frontal with, and hopefully for those that are in the industries or in enterprises can be a part of this mitigation and also natural disasters, a program that you would like to implore. Now, why, should businesses become involved in community disaster preparedness, Mas Abi?
First of all, thank you for having me, and I really appreciate seeing Morning Show raises this issue because I think this is very important, for Indonesia as a disaster-prone country. And there are two reasons why business sectors or private sectors should get involved in disaster preparedness. First, we know that the foundation of business is their workforce, and therefore, and also their assets, like their infrastructure and so on and so forth. I think it's very important for them to get involved because to safeguard their supply chain, also to safeguard their infrastructure and so on and so forth. And then the second one, because I think the government has already mandated private sectors to get involved and to get participated in corporate social responsibility to help the community around them.
And even before the government got involved, how involved are Indonesian entrepreneurs in disaster preparedness?
Yeah, unfortunately, what we have been seeing over the past couple of years, the involvement of private sector is mostly unorganized. They did have involvement over the past couple of years, but it's mostly on charity basis, and also mostly at the disaster response, not disaster risk reduction or disaster preparedness. We should know when we talk about private sector, it consists of major industries and also small and medium enterprises. However, while private sectors like major industries have involved giving back to the society, I think the core problem that we should discuss also about the resiliency of small and medium enterprises when they get hit by disasters.
Right.
And I'm kind of questioning, why do you think right now maybe some industries or much more on the entrepreneurs, especially the MSMEs, why do they don't want to be involved in this or not yet wanting to put their foot forward right now for the disaster preparedness, Mas Abi? Why are they reluctant?
Yeah, I think there are two core problems. First, about incentive. Unfortunately, our regulation is not well equipped to give them an incentive. We talk about, for example, the Act number 7/2021 about the harmonization of tax regulation. Unfortunately, we can only give tax deduction and also tax exemption only those who are affected by disasters or who help disaster victims, or when disasters are already declared as national disaster. We do not give tax deduction and also tax exemption for those who participate actively in reducing disaster risk. I think this is one of the biggest problems. We cannot give fiscal incentive for those who actively participate. And then another regulation ministerial regulation number 9/2020, Ministry of Social Welfare, about social responsibility, also talk about the same problem, that they direct the involvement of private sector only during disaster response, not disaster preparedness. So basically, the first one is lack of incentive, and the second one, I think it's because lack of agency to coordinate the private sector involvement for this case here.
Yeah, I totally agree. I guess I look at it more like if you have auto insurance or health insurance, don't wait until something goes wrong and then you get the bill at the end and it's like, wow, I can't believe I had to pay that much. Instead, if you already had insurance to begin with, it's more of an investment of time and money, but then later on down the road, when you do need it, it certainly will help out. So what are some of examples of things that can be done by either corporations and MSMEs for disaster preparedness, just for examples?
Yeah, I think the government has already had this regulation called as the head of BNPB regulation number 12/2014, but unfortunately the implementation is not that optimal. somehow because of a lot of reasons, definitely. But when we talk about examples, the involvement or public-private partnership with private companies, like in reducing disasters, like in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, like Grab Indonesia organized like hackathon, like to map like disaster-prone areas using technologies, and also involving like communities and also universities in Indonesia. And another example, for instance, like major companies like Astra International Fund, research project about disaster-prone, regions in Indonesia, and also how to deal with it. I think like those are the examples.
Yeah, those would certainly help, because those companies you mentioned must certainly have so much resources on their hands that they could contribute to that. What about MSMEs? Because there's so many MSMEs in Indonesia. What can a small business do to get themselves involved for disaster preparedness?
At least if they cannot like actively participate in helping others, at least they can help themselves, right? At least like in formulating like business continuity plan and also business recovery plan when they get hit by disasters. But there isn't any governmental regulation for this case. So we need that one.
Just only mandates by the government, but there's
no structure.
There's no regulation yet. Do you think that maybe there should be a sanction, especially for, let's say, a big corporation or industries, if they don't want to join the disaster preparedness, Masabi? So then they want to be a part of it, because at the end of the day, this is social responsibility, as you said, and we are now engaging to more sustainable businesses. That's what the world is doing right now, sort of speak.
I think instead of giving sanctions, I think I prefer more like giving the incentive, because companies in Indonesia have already been burdened by a lot of regulations and also a lot of fees and so on and so forth. So I think like Bali has set a good example for when basically their local disaster management authority organizes certification of the tsunami readiness for hotel. So when you visit Bali, you should notice about this certification. Like in some of hotels, like in Nusa Dua, for example, they get prepared about tsunami risk.
Okay, so
you see them, by the way.
Yeah, by the way,
you see them.
Signage too.
Yes.
Because I remember when I traveled at one point, I believe it was to Thailand years and years ago, and I remember to some of the islands, they always had a lot of signage and things of that sort, what to do. Kind of made me paranoid a bit, like, is something going to happen? But at least there was a lot of information out there.
And awareness.
Awareness, right. But if you go to Bali, I would say I don't see a lot of signage, except maybe in specific areas, as to what to do if you see a wave, like find a high spot or don't.
But I saw, well, because I just went to Bali, there's like a tsunami alert, and you see those in a couple of spaces, and I saw that, me and my husband were speaking, you can see. So it means that, that premises is already head set for natural disasters.
Okay, those are things that can be done because they're actually in the government's control. They can decide, hey, we want to put more information out there. But how do you think the government can engage the community more in order for them to, not everybody feels social responsibility, unfortunately. So how can the government encourage more social responsibility?
Yeah, I think we should move our discussion beyond, the current regulation and then to the implementation. So basically what we told, previously, like I think last week at CSIS Indonesia, we had this discussion with legislative and also legislative representative and also with the MPB and also the Ministry of Finance. And then we say that we should, implement like this incentive. So like business community can involve more, in reducing disaster risk. Unfortunately, like at this point, we only had like the regulations stated normatively, but there isn't any action like to give them like incentive, like particularly like fiscal incentive, as we call.
Incentives always work. People like saving money.
And of course, again, the social responsibilities, right? What you're doing for your community, that should be big enough for any companies or industries and businesses also. So, Mas Abi, please let us know, other than incentive, what other advantages if some businesses or entrepreneurs, be a part of the program of disaster preparedness?
Yeah, I think they should also get informed about the way they safeguard their assets and so on and so forth. The
Yeah.
way they safeguard their workforce and so on and so forth by training by being trained by the government, for example. I think it's just one of the long list the possible or potential benefit that they can get when they work together with the government in reducing disaster risk.
So, Masabi, what countries, if any, can we look to as an example, perhaps, or a role model, if you will, that have implemented similar kind of regulations, but are able to successfully get some sort of involvement from the community and some sort of action going?
Okay, so I would like to mention about the United States. So basically, the states, they have like the National Flood Insurance Program. So whenever you have business or whenever you have home, like in flood-prone area, so you are required to have, flood insurance.
Sure.
However, the government will provide discount premium if you do actions like in reducing disaster or in reducing flood risk and so on and so forth. If you manage those risks and so on and so forth. And another good example, as I always emphasize, like in so many occasions, is about the Philippines. They have like these Philippines Disaster Resilience Foundation. It's a network of business sectors. They have their own emergency operations center. They connect. They get information like from international and also national agencies. They work together with the government. They basically connect the dots and also work to enhance the resilience of the small and medium enterprises by giving them training of business continuity planning, and then they deliver logistical assistance to those affected areas. So I think like these countries should be looked at when we talk about role models of disaster risk reduction.
And a win-win solution, right? The government got a lot of assistance, and also the businesses also got also the assistance. It works both ways.
Yeah, it's a win-win. I mean, if you kind of enforce you having to have flood insurance so your business doesn't go under, at least you're covered for costs, but then you're actually giving incentives towards those insurance, it's kind of like, it's a double-edged sword that actually works in a good way, I think, right?
And a responsibility for all of us, right? Especially we're living in this very vast country. Now, you were saying walk the talk. Now, what is the action for businesses and enterprises right now who wants to be a part, doing this as a disaster preparedness?
First thing first, we realized that last week or 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, like when Jakarta was hit by an earthquake, like a lot of workforce and companies were panicked and then probably didn't know what to do and so on and so forth. So I think like start with a small thing, like check whether your employees have already known about rule of procedure, what to do during disasters and so on and so forth. Check about the resiliency of the buildings or the assets that this company work and so on and so forth. So I think like start with the small actions.
Yeah, I think the action is the right word that we should take from this conversation is that we all need to take action before something bad happens. Kind of, not to be, don't, it's a gray area between being paranoid and being prepared. Both of them sound the same, but I think it's always best that we are prepared for things like this. And
prepare the umbrella before the rain, right?
Exactly. Masabi, thank you so much for a more insightful look into this. This is something that is that I've never thought of, but I think it's very important. Like you said, that earthquake really hit home. Literally, I was at home and I just realized that
no pun intended.
And my kids didn't even, my older kid didn't know what to do. And I thought, I should actually have been having this conversation before the earthquake happened. And I guess that's how this is relatable to me as well. Thanks for your time again,
Thank you, Masabi.
Always great talking
to you.
Take good care. Stay safe.